Welcome into the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. On this week's episode, I have Derek Ross joining. Derek is a super user on NOSTR, founder of NOSTR Plebs. And if you don't know what NOSTR is, it's the decentralized version of Twitter and a bunch of other things. And it's really, if you last week heard me, I talked about how we need to be better Bitcoiners. And so this was very pertinent because I had not been using NOSTR enough and I was getting on it, and I reached out to him. He said, "Absolutely, I will come on." So if you don't know anything about Nostr, it's a great one. If you do know anything about Nostr, it's also a really good one because it teaches you a lot. I mean, there's more to it than I even thought. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And I hope you get a BitBox02 hardware wallet. Go to bitbox.swish/Bitcoin made simple. Bitbox.swish, not swish. Bitbox.swish/Bitcoin made simple. Use promo code Bitcoin made simple to get 5% off. And we've talked about it. It's easiest, simplest, best hardware wallet in the world. It's about the size of a thumb drive. And if a dummy like me can figure it out, you can too. And it's okay. Don't be embarrassed. You probably don't have your coins on a hardware wallet at this point. It's okay. We all make that mistake, but you can stop making that mistake right now. So use that promo code Bitcoin Made Simple, get 5% off your order, and secure your keys. And also thank you to Barefoot Mining. Barefoot Mining has made it its mission to find other like-minded investors and miners that are looking to use things like hydroelectric, natural gas, even on-grid mining, solar, you name it. Bitcoin mining is trying to diversify the way Bitcoin is mined and work with investors that are looking to do the same thing. So if you want to follow them on Twitter, it's at Barefoot Mining or Twitter or X at Barefoot Mining. And you can go to www.barefootmining.com. And here's the show. Welcome into the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. And today on the show, I have Derek Ross, who is a NOSTR pleb. NOSTR, if you're familiar with it, it's the Twitter alternative. But Derek, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Corey. Thanks for having me.
So I have to admit, I initially kind of thought that you were in some way a part of the founding of Nostr because you are all over Nostr.
I am, yeah. Well,
So how did you get wrapped up in it?
there's a running joke, like I like it. It's funny, but at the same time, now that we're like jailing CEOs, apparently, I don't like the joke that when people say "Hey, Derek's the CEO." Like it's funny. There is no CEO of Noster, so that's the whole joke. And then like a week ago, like Telegram CEO gets jailed, and I'm like, all right, guys, like the joke's over. Like let's not do the joke anymore. Um,
I'm
so
done
I'm just
playing around now.
yeah, so I'm really active on Noster. I like onboarding. I like educating people on Noster. I'm kind of like a Noster evangelist. And then also, almost 2 years ago now, I started a Noster service provider. So I'm fairly well known across the protocol, I guess you'd say. So yeah, I guess there is some confusion there, but no, I'm just a guy that uses Nostr and loves to talk about freedom technology. But am I an OG? Yeah, maybe, I guess. I joined in December 2022 whenever a whole bunch of people started joining, but Nostr was already 2 years old at that point, and it was just a bunch of developers like kind of like hacking away at code. So I'm not an OG developer, but I'll say an OG of the first major wave of people joining Nostr.
Cool. And so for those that don't know, it's completely decentralized. And I should mention this part of the reason I wanted to get into this, if I can find it, but I might as well actually just do my sponsor read for the Bitbox. Trying to find my Bitbox wallet. I usually have it around here somewhere. But I did an episode last week where I was talking about we need to be better Bitcoiners. And that's what made me get back on Nostr because I was like, oh yeah, I haven't been on there. But it's just something that I feel like we're not being good Bitcoiners if we're promoting every other thing under the sun and not really working on Nostr. So anyways, point being is that, I thought like self custody, of your keys is really important. And I think railed on it for like 20 minutes where I was just like, I know most of you don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, I know that. Like, it's fine. It took me longer than it should have. And then so over the weekend, I was sitting there going like, I know everybody goes on Nostr, and I set up an account, and I was like, I'm kind of embarrassed to see how long it's been since I was on there, and it was a year. Like, I'd gone a year without posting anything, and I was like, shit. So I felt it was incumbent upon myself as a Bitcoiner and everyone that's like, all right, we're gonna push away from this centralized system. We have to embrace things like Nostr. So
Absolutely.
what attracted to you you to it first, and what have you seen flourish over your 2 years doing it?
Well, you mentioned centralization. You mentioned Bitcoin and kind of the Bitcoin ethos, and I really think that's what attracted me to Nostr. Is that even though Nostr doesn't need Bitcoin, the two have a beautiful symbiotic relationship. The two have a beautiful marriage together. They have a lot of the same ethos, whereas Bitcoin is it's the freedom to transact. Well, Nostr is the freedom to communicate. On Nostr, you can be in control of your social communication. With Bitcoin, you can be in control of your financial transactions. So it has a lot of the same ethos and same mindset. So that initially drew me in. Being a Bitcoiner, it made sense for me to want to check out decentralized and censorship communication, since I was a fan of decentralized and censorship resistant money. It just
Yeah.
kind of made sense to check it out. Um, but then kind of realizing what it meant for the world, right? The same way that we know we like Bitcoin because we believe that Bitcoin can fix the money, fix the world. Well, we need to communicate first, right? Like you can't truly transact until you can truly communicate freely. Like, how am I supposed to send you Bitcoin and for us to do a financial transaction if I can't communicate with you? What if it gets censored, right? Like,
Mhm.
how do we know that my communication to you is signed? We need it to be verifiable, this communication, just like our money. So the two go hand in hand. That's what really drew me in. But if we're going back to like that first event where you had that aha moment, it was when you realize that Noster is so much more than this like Twitter clone. Like in the introduction there,
Mhm.
you had mentioned Noster. It's an alternative Twitter, which it is, but it's so much more than that. It's every single app that you have on your phone, every single app that you use that has some type of social component, you can rebuild the whole entire thing. And then you can take this identity that you have and you can take it from application to application to application. Like, that was the aha moment when I realized I
Yeah.
could sign in with my private key to all sorts of different applications that use Noster and have a similar experience. That's what's really cool. Like, for example, you sign into maybe Instagram and then you sign into Twitter. You have completely different social graphs and content and followers and follows, contact lists, like the whole nine yards. It's all different. But with Noster, I can sign into one app A and then sign into app B, and my entire contact list, my whole social graph, my social data comes with me. And the only thing that differentiates the two then is, what that application is built to display, how it's going to display your content. And that's really, really cool. And that's really powerful to have this social graph that you own. And that's what really turned me on, realizing that this is something really big because we've never been in control of our social data. Looking back, going back 2 decades, and you started using MySpace and or Friendster and then to Facebook and all the other things. Like, it's not our data on those social platforms. That data is owned by the tech companies, by the social companies. So it puts the user back in control, and it's a social protocol that's being built by the users, for the users. It's whenever I realize that, it's kind of that aha moment. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be huge. It's going to take a while because it's a grassroots movement, but man, once it takes off, it's going to be huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so you said So there's different applications that you can
Yeah.
use the same. This is your mid-show reminder to get a Bitbox. Go to bitbox.swiss/Bitcoin made simple. Use promo code Bitcoin made simple to get 5% off.
Hear
Go.
you.
There we go.
Fine.
Got it.
My mic isn't
I figured it
muted.
out. Do you
You
hear
can
me
hear me
now?
now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, my uh, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I don't know, like my mic wasn't muted.
Yeah, I don't know. It was
So, all
for
right,
some
man.
reason it switched over from these headphones to another set of headphones. No idea
Oh,
why.
okay.
And that's never
That,
happened.
that, that that's fine. That's I was sitting there turning it off, turning it back on. It's it's technology. This is a great this kind of like thing happened to me at Nostriga, the conference that we had last week for Noster. Like I was there to explain and teach people how to use Noster, but the first like 3 minutes we were fighting with the slides, and I'm like, man, technology is hard, and this is why I'm here to talk about technology, because technology is hard and we need somebody to figure this shit out. So
Exactly.
that's these
So
things happen.
so yeah, we'll reset, I guess. So you were about the we're talking about we're talking about how you can use your private keys to get into
Yeah. So
multiple
I
things.
was asking you what Noster app do you use?
The Damus.
So you use Damus. Well, that's a perfect example. You use Damus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on my phone, I use Amethyst and I use Primal. Those are two other Noster apps, and they're on Android, right? Like there is
Yeah.
no official like Noster app, and because we have all these different Noster apps, we all see very similar content. Or maybe I want to do blog posts. I sign into highlighter.com, or maybe I want to stream a video. I sign into zap.stream, or I want to do an audio chat like Twitter Spaces. I sign into nosternest.com. Like there's all these different
And each
there's
of them has
dozens
their
of
own application.
yeah, there's dozens of different Noster apps out there. Like there's so many. It's really really cool when you can take this identity that you have, like this private key, and you can sign into a couple dozen different apps, and
Hmm.
there's apps for everything. There's apps for meetups, there's apps for blogging, there's apps for for events, like like I said, there's audio video apps. There's even like app stores
Huh.
being built on Nostr. All this really cool stuff.
So who invented Noster?
There is a Bitcoin and Lightning developer by the name of Fiat Joff. He actually invented Lightning addresses. So if you've ever used a Lightning address, like he was like one of the minds behind that. But anyways, he's a Bitcoin and Lightning developer, and about 4 years ago, he invented this social communication protocol. He realized, what was broken with current legacy platforms. He realized that Mastodon, the Activity Pub, protocol, like it still has some downfalls because you're relying on a server administrator, and that it wasn't the way forward. So he created Noster. Like I said, he's a Brazilian StarCraft lover and lover of dad jokes, and he's a Bitcoin and Lightning developer, and that's all we know about him.
And so other than that, he's literally nobody's met him, nobody's seen him.
As far as far as we know, yeah, it's kind of like Satoshi, right?
He's just a coder behind us behind the keyboard, and
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's been to a Noster event, but we don't know. He's hacking away at code and building
huh.
all these different utilities and whatnot. But it's not just him, right? There's dozens and dozens, and I mean maybe hundreds of developers that are all working on various aspects of Nostr. Like since it's a protocol,
Yeah.
that means anybody can build, right? It's free and open source software, and it's permissionless, so anybody can build anything. So there's people that are building clients, and people that are building like server applications, people that are building all sorts of like microservices and apps and tools. Like it's really wild to see all of these developers build together yet be independent at the same time.
Yeah.
Because since it's a protocol, that means if I build something, it can work with what you're building.
Yep.
If we were to build something, but we don't have to work together on the same project. It's all the same rules, same standards, so we can work together independently if we want.
So how does the information get stored? I assume it's not using. I've seen relays, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that's part of it, but I am assuming if this guy's anonymous, he doesn't have a huge server farm, somewhere storing all the
Yeah,
data like Twitter would.
yeah, that's right. So Nostr is decentralized. Anybody can run a relay. Relays are just servers, or if you're from the Bitcoin ecosystem, you might call it a node. That's all it is. It's just a piece of software that runs on a computer, and it stores all of our data. So I run multiple relays. Like I run a relay on my phone, I run a relay in my house for my wife and I to use. There's large public relays, there's large relays that are paid that require like a monthly or a yearly or a one-time fee to be able to use. And these relays store people's data. And different relays have different retention policies. The way that Nostr stays censorship resistant is your data is stored on these decentralized data stores, these relays. So if one of these relays for some reason would decide to censor you or ban you or something, well, that's okay. Your data is sitting there on
On other
maybe
relays.
half a dozen, maybe a dozen other relays. And, worst case scenario, if all 1,000 relays that exist out there ban you or censor you, you say, well, that sucks, but hey, I'm going to run my own relay. And then you're in charge of your data.
And it still
Your data
shows up
sits
in
on your
Nostr.
relay. Yeah, and it still shows up on Nostr. Yeah.
So, so your phone, you say you're running a relay on it. It stores all the data for Nostr on it.
For me, so
So
the
your
relay that
stuff
runs on my phone, it's kind of like a local backup. Basically, it has a backup of all my content on my relay on my phone. And then I also have a publicly accessible relay that everybody in the world can connect to get Derek Ross's and my wife's content. But also that's kind of like a it's like kind of like a backup as well. It's just me being in charge of my social data.
Huh. Okay, so when you if I'm not running a relay right now, like I don't think I am on Nostr, I'm gonna pull it up. Um
So you have Damus. Damus has so I said I'm running a relay on my phone. Damus essentially is running a local relay on your iPhone as well. In the same regard as that it's kind of built in, it's a way for all your content to go to and be stored there locally. Damus actually has a local relay called NostrDB. But yeah, it's a way for you to have your data just stored locally so you could have it as kind of a backup that you can broadcast to other relays later if you need
okay.
to.
So like I see it I like go in it have my relays and it's like brb.io, snort, Nosterland,
Yeah, so these are
damus.io.
relays that are randomly assigned to you through Damus. Like you can go in and customize those. So if you have your own relay or you have your own community or relays, geographically that you want to use for whatever reason, you can change those. You can change the servers that your data is going to be stored on. You have complete control
Over where
to
it
do that.
goes.
Whereas on Twitter, it's one dude at the top that is in control of all the servers where your data is stored, and you're not in control of that data. That data is not yours.
Okay. So those ones on sorry, I'm just like trying to figure this out. So the
Yeah.
relays that I have on my phone, I have none of those I own though, since they're
Yeah, those are all relays that people from the Nostr ecosystem run for, for one reason or another. They want to charge a subscription fee or they want to just support the network or their community, whatever, those people are running those relays and you're using relays that people are running.
and
Like you don't have to.
I can't create one in Damus
No, that's a separate piece of software. So you would like if you have a Bitcoin node, like if you use Start9 or if you use Umbrel, my node, things like that, those like Bitcoin node operating systems, they all allow you to deploy a Nostr relay if you would like to. It's just so point and click. You can install a Nostr relay, and then you can configure your Damus, your Primal, Amethyst, whatever client you're using to use your local relay that you deployed through your Bitcoin node.
and so how much space does uh relay take up, like all your
It's
data?
just, I mean, it's just text. Like text is very, very
Maybe
small.
occasional pictures or videos.
Yeah, so it's a little bit confusing, but Nostr at the technical level is just text. So your
Okay.
media, your videos, your pictures, things like that, that content needs to be hosted kind of
Somewhere.
outside the Nostr ecosystem. So there's multiple ways of doing that. There's been multiple like media servers, file servers that people have stood up. There's maybe a dozen of them that store content. You can set up your own media server if you wanted to, like if you had like a server in your house or something like that, or you can use these services that people have been building over the past like year and a half, 2 years. These media services, and some of them are free, some of them charge, uh, for storage, or especially if you want to store larger videos, things like that.
Okay.
Everything has a cost, so you can pay and you can use these media providers.
Okay. Um, hmm. Fascinating. So so you set up a relay. It holds all
Yes.
your information, and then when somebody goes to, let's just say, I'm trying to make this equate for people. So let's say it's Twitter. Say if
Yes.
Twitter ran on Nostr.
It
Um,
could.
yeah, it could in theory.
It could someday, right? Elon could literally make Twitter the most highly customized Nostr client, like Nostr app there is, where the back end all uses Nostr. Like they custody the keys for you. They use their own private, custom relay, and you don't even know that you're using Nostr. Kind of like Threads, how it supports the Fediverse. Like if you're familiar with that,
Hmm.
same way. Like Twitter could incorporate Nostr if they wanted to in the back end, and you wouldn't even know.
So if Twitter was Nostr, you run your own relay, and that's the only one you're connected to. Let's just say, for that sake, you have one on your phone and you have one on your desktop at home. And those are the two relays you use for your Twitter account. When you tweet something, it gets stored on your device, and then when somebody goes on Twitter that follows you and your tweet shows up in front of them, it would be then getting served from your device to them directly.
Yeah, that's how Nostr works. So if I have a server like a Nostr relay that I'm sending all my data to, whatever Nostr client you are using, whenever you would go to my profile or look at your feed, that application, that client that you're using actually physically connects to my server and downloads the content from me and displays it for you.
Dude, this goes next level. Um, and this goes with the Bob Burnett, personal friend of the show, and partner and stuff. Making Bitcoin miners servers instead of Bitcoin miners, so that, because it's just a computer, and that way they
Yeah.
can't regulate against what's miner is doing, because I don't know, it's a server, part of it's hashing Bitcoin, part of it's a relay, part of it's
Yeah.
um, doing
Yeah.
random number generation for something else. I mean, there's just, so that's interesting.
Yeah, what if your heater in your house, for I run Bitcoin miners and heat my house in the wintertime. What if my heater, was also my relay and it stored all my social data? Like absolutely, it's just a server.
You know what?
It
This is.
you, you you could have these highly customized boxes to do whatever you want, right?
Did you ever watch the show Silicon Valley?
Yes,
Okay.
I love that show.
By the way, first of all, if you're an entrepreneur, it's like the best show to ever, because it's,
Absolutely, because you're making fun of yourself the whole time,
yeah,
man. Like it's
like
hilarious.
you're like laughing the whole time, and like sometimes you're like, I don't know if I should be laughing or crying, but I've lived
Cry.
through this exact
Yeah,
situation.
yeah,
Um, but it reminds me of, not the, obviously the compression algorithm was like the fictitious thing
yeah.
that,
Little out compression.
yeah, so it's not that, but when, what's his name, Guilfoyle programmed their algorithm, whatever it turned into eventually, it wasn't just a compression thing. It became something else. And when he programmed it on the refrigerator
Yeah.
to mess with Jin Yang, and then they thought they were going to lose their client because their system wasn't working, but then the refrigerator ended up talking to all the other refrigerators and running like a server farm on these smart refrigerators around the
Yeah.
world,
Yeah.
and that saved their butt. And like, spoiler alert, sorry, but that's what it kind of makes me think of, is that like, as these relays keep getting set up, it really is at that point. At that point, you're decentralized. I mean, we still have to work on the element of, you know, what happens if the grid goes down. Okay, like
Yep.
that's a problem. To me, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. It's probably a three-pronged problem. If the grid goes down, that's one issue. The other issue is telecommunications, you know, via towers or what have you. And then the third one would be the centralization of the protocol. But we have one of the three solved at this point. Am
Yeah.
I wrong? Like, does that sound about right?
No, you do, and you know what would be I think that as technology gets better, right? Like if you look back 20 years ago, 25 years ago, people had modems, and then they had a router, and then they had a switch, and then they had a wireless access point. That's four pieces of technology to just have wireless communication in your house. Well, now then those all merged into one device.
Yep.
And now you can get that one device that maybe has a print server in it and maybe has a file server in it. So again, like these things are merging together, and technology is getting better and simplifying. What if the next major router you buy, you can install your Bitcoin node on it, your Nostr relay on it, and then it completely so much decentralizes the network where every home in the world essentially is running their own Bitcoin node for their own financial transactions. They're running their own Nostr relay for social communication, and it's completely decentralized because there's a billion of these out there. Like I think that's the next interesting device that it'll be an all-in-one device that people use in their home, and they'll point and click to install these features, and it'll just work.
Huh. That's
I mean,
fascinating.
maybe a few years from now that'll happen. That's my pipe dream.
That's I think it's gonna happen.
Well, yeah,
Um,
I mean, look at it. Like I said, like 20 years ago, you had four devices. Nowadays, like or six devices. If you had a file server and a print server, now these six devices, you can go to Walmart and buy one for $100. Maybe another few years, hopefully Bitcoin does what we think it's going to do, and it becomes more popular. The consumers start demanding this. I mean, we already kind of have it with your Umbrals and your Start Nines. What if we take that Umbral and Start Nine and throw a router into it, and boom, and there you go. I mean, that's all we need to do, and then we have these everywhere.
yeah, this is
So decentralization is getting easier because technology and communication, like telecommunication, is getting better.
yeah, yeah. So how do we get around? I guess another choke point would be, how do we get around the app stores?
So
Because I mean,
Nost,
if I, say the Damus
yeah,
app
yeah.
that I have on my phone, for example, like,
Oh,
if the powers that be wanted to cut it off, they could just go to Apple and Android and say,
yeah.
don't let anyone have this.
Well, so there's a NOSTR project that aims to kind of fix that, at least for Android. Apple's a walled garden,
Yep.
and you're never going to fix it for Apple unless they decide to change company direction. But right now, Android's open. Android can install any application from anywhere. But the Google Play Store is where, Google's in control, where Google could say, "Hey, I want this Nostr app, or this Bitcoin app removed." They could do that. The majority of people would probably not know how to go and find these applications elsewhere and install them. But making things easier, there's alternative app stores. Like maybe Maybe you've heard of, F-Droid, or maybe you heard of Obtainium. Well,
And
there's
these are
one that's
just
being bit.
Android, right? These aren't
Yeah, these are just
Apple.
Android. Yeah, think of them as like third party, or different app stores. They're app stores that like Google doesn't control. So there's an app store that's built on Nostr called Zap.store. And Zap.store is really cool because it uses your web of trust for application reviews and recommendations. So if you go to like the Apple App Store, or you go to, Google Play, you see reviews and recommendations from people you don't know. You don't know who these people are that are
Hmm.
recommending these apps. But what if you saw recommendations from your social graph, and reviews from your social graph? That's kind of cool. Like, you know these people, you trust these people, they're inside your web of trust. So Zap Store is doing that. It's a brand new app store that has verifiable, transactions are signed over Nostr, and reviews are coming from your social graph. So I say we, the royal we,
Yeah.
developers are trying to fix that right now, but I don't think they're going to be able to fix it anytime soon on Apple, unfortunately, since Apple isn't very open with those types of policies.
So you can't even have like a URL based app store.
Well, you can have PWAs, right? Progressive web apps.
Yeah.
But ultimately,
They're still
you're
clunky
still.
compared to.
Yeah, yeah, they're still a little clunky, compared to native applications. Some things don't work as well, but it's what it is. If you choose to use Apple, you have to play by their rules. If you choose to use an Android phone, it's a little more open and you have more freedom.
Yeah. Um, hmm. This has really got my brain turning.
Because this is, well, you mentioned Damus in the App Store. Like a year ago, there was a chance that Damus was going to get removed from the App Store because it had built-in Lightning payments, Zaps. It had built-in
mm,
Zaps, and Apple found out about it and said, "Oh, we want our share of
we
the
need
cut."
15% of that.
Yeah, they wanted their percentage of every Lightning transaction. The response should have been, "Okay, we'll spin up a Lightning node,"
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's not going to work. They wanted their fiat cut. So unfortunately, the developer, he had to remove Zaps from Damus,
Are they back
because of
though?
that.
Because I thought they were there.
Yeah, they're back with a workaround. So if you have Zaps, you have that workaround. So kudos to that.
Okay.
But
Well, it says it's enabled on mine, but I was like texting with Guy Swan about it, and I'm like, I don't know how to get into the wallet anymore. So that's probably the problem, to be honest.
oh, your wallet on Dom, yeah, with whichever wallet you have,
Yeah. I have
linked to
to.
your profile.
Um. Yeah, I have to figure it out because it's. I mean, he sent me like 1,000 sats or something, so it was like, trying to find it. But yeah, that's fascinating. So
Yep.
basically, you can, if you're not on an iPhone, you can get around the app stores.
Yeah.
And in that scenario, if you're using any phone that's not an iPhone, you can, communicate without the manufacturers wanting you to. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. Like if you bought a phone, you can install an Android phone. You can install custom operating systems and custom app stores and things like that. Like I'm a big Android fan. Like that's just who I am. I've
Yeah,
always been a big Android fan. But yeah, I mean, Apple,
they're
they're
yeah,
just
like you said,
too.
they're a walled garden.
They're a walled garden. Yeah.
Um, so I mean, this kind of then the relay makes sense where it's probably like how a ham radio would work. Like
Where anybody can listen, anybody can kind of
to a degree,
use
like
it.
I don't know, maybe that's not the right. Because I was thinking, isn't
Well,
there something
if
where
it's
with a ham
it,
radio it would extend your range to someone else?
yeah, so relays, even though they're called a relay, it makes you think that once it gets the information, it would relay it on to the next, relay. They don't do that. That's not the best word for them, like, because it's kind of not true. They don't relay any information. Relays are kind of just dumb data stores. All they are is databases that store the information that is sent to them and then they send the information once a client queries and says, "Hey, I need this information," and they send it. They don't really do a whole lot besides that. So they don't relay it on. Now that doesn't mean that some people haven't built these type of services. There are, to make it confusing for the audience, there are some relays that do relay, but that's enhancements built by developers.
Okay. Um, whew, this is a lot to digest. Um,
Well, Noster's a little technical still because it's an early grassroots movement, right? Like it's not a billion-dollar company that doesn't have a billion-dollar marketing budget or 300 designers and 300 developers working on user experience. Like Noster does not have that. Noster has hackers and coders that are sitting in basements and the real cypherpunk feel that people that are shadowy super coders that are
yeah.
hacking away at the protocol in their spare time. There's a couple companies that do exist that are that have raised funding and that are pushing forward that way, but still they don't have the budgets or the teams that these major tech companies have. So it'll get. You said you used Nostr a year ago. Like I assume from a year ago to now, it's gotten so much easier, better, like improved so much. Like Nostr's improving all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it has for sure. And I mean, it's a lot slicker now.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just, I wish I would, if to me, it feels like what the early days of Bitcoin must have felt like,
sure. Yeah,
like being on like the Bitcoin, talk, the Bitcoin talk
Bitcoin
forum
talk forums and
in
yeah,
back in like 2009, 10, like,
trading around USB sticks with Bitcoin on it.
yeah, exactly. It seems, I mean, I got to get in touch with Jack Dorsey because I know he's very involved and I want to ask about that. Um, I got to get in touch with him though, because I so I have this idea. It's more than an idea. I know it's fleshed out and it work for a decentralized media system. But you mentioned that there is kind of something like that, like a video.
Yeah, there's media servers, then there's a whole other protocol that an Nostr developer built called Blossom, where it functions. Again, there are these like media servers that media is uploaded to, and it's hashed, and you can sync then copies to other media servers. Like there's ways that people are trying to solve this decentralized media issue, but if you have an idea like Jack Dorsey, you mentioned him. He gave like $5 million last year, $5 million this year to OpenSats for Nostr development. So there's a whole bunch of funding available for developers that are looking to build. You just need to apply for funding at opensats.org, and you can maybe get funding to build out your application.
Yeah, and the problem is I'm not a programmer, but certainly could project lead. Um,
So you're in my boat. I'm
yeah,
not yeah. I'm a tech guy. I'm not a developer. Like people that aren't technical say I'm a developer because I can write like a few lines of code or run systems and run technical stuff. But me being in the tech field, I am not a full stack developer.
yeah,
But I can do a whole bunch of other stuff. I have an application out there called Nostr Nest, and since I'm not a full stack developer, I worked with a developer and I paid the developer. I was kind of like the project lead, project manager, trying to get this application built. So there's those opportunities too. You can put out bounties and say I want this built, and send some Bitcoin to developers, and they can build your product. I have another friend that he wanted a cooking recipe website built. He loves food, he loves cooking, but he's not a developer. He built Zap.cooking with the help of developers, and he paid Bitcoin to these developers to build the cooking website for him. But he's not a developer at all. He just was the man with an idea and the project lead.
huh.
So there's all sorts of opportunities.
And so Jack is super involved with. I mean, I think it's amazing, and You know,
Yeah, I mean,
I
it
mean, I guess this is where
involves,
he's most active.
yeah, and involves in it, involved as in active. Yeah, he's very active on Nostr. He talks to people. You can have a conversation with him. He has donated money for development, and he has donated money for the three Nostr World conferences, so they can be free, and like he pays for the venue and stuff like that. But beyond that, I mean, there is no like board of
He's not the
directors or
developer or anything like that.
I mean, he's just a dude on Noster that is very cool and understands why Noster is important, and has donated some money to OpenSats to be used for development. But yeah, but he sees the future, on Noster. His company Block has, you know, in their shareholder announcement. I think they're like the first company to mention Noster during a shareholder announcement a couple quarters ago. Like, yeah, he's all in, I would say.
Yeah. Um, I really got to I got to dig into that more. Cause I mean, people know I own the Movies Plus, a streaming platform. So that's kind of where always been my head's been at. Like we do have to work with server farms and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And years ago, and I just haven't had the ability because we haven't grown enough to be able to do it. But I came up with an idea of how to decentralize that. And now that I'm sitting there thinking about it, I'm like, I think this could be done through Noster.
Use Noster as your coordination layer. Use Noster for any social features for login. Like, there's all sorts of ways you can incorporate it, and then you could do Blossom servers or NIP96 file servers or something. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Well, I guess, I mean, anything else like about Noster that I haven't touched on that people should know about? Because I'm not,
Um.
you know,
Yeah.
fully
Yeah.
versed in
Yeah.
it, but go ahead.
Yeah. So, Noster's, kind of like Bitcoin can be anything you want it to be, and Bitcoin is different, to every person, and everybody has their own definition of why Bitcoin is good for them. Noster's kind of the same way. There's a lot of different aspects are good. Like, so we talked about decentralization and censorship resistance, and we talked about this identity. But one thing I didn't mention is that Noster allows us to regain our attention. And what I mean by that is our attention is kind of captured on traditional social media, where you see advertisements all over the place. You see these rage algorithms that
Mm-hmm.
are meant to keep you engaged, so you keep coming back to the platform. So you see enraging content, so you keep coming back to the platform so they can show you more ads. It's this vicious cycle. And a lot of times over the past, you know decade, maybe, you kind of leave social media feeling angry or bad. It's, a lot of times it's not very healthy, where
Yeah.
people say they have to step away, like,
That's not a
because it,
healthy.
yeah, right, like,
Yeah.
that's the truth. It isn't. I mean, people literally have come up with the term doom scrolling, like.
Yeah, I know. It's such a real thing.
Yeah. So Noster, the people that are building Noster realized all these things I just said. Like, they realize what's wrong with traditional social media. So there aren't any clients at this time with advertisements. That may come at some point, but right now there isn't. There's no algorithms at the protocol level, but clients that have implemented some type of algorithmic feed, it's all open and transparent. You can choose to use it if you want to.
You can go
You
to a
can choose
different
to not
one.
use it.
Yeah.
Like, and you can completely build and customize your own feed. Again, like, something that is missing from traditional social media. So you can regain control over your attention. If you don't want to see algos, you don't have to. You don't want to see ads, well, you don't have to. If you want to see fluffy kitties and dog pictures, you can use the Fluffy Friends algorithm, and that's all you see. Like, there's all sorts of different feeds, and that allow users to build these social experiences that we've never really had the tools to do before. So Nostr is enabling bloom scrolling, as some people like to say,
Bloom
instead of
scrolling.
doom. It's blooming.
I like
But
that. I like
yeah,
that.
it's very positive. Like, Nostr also has zaps. so good positive content is kind of incentivized. Like if you're posting mean, angry, negative content, it's probably not going to get as many zaps as somebody that's posting positive, informative, and good content. So, zaps kind of help here too. Noster's just, I don't know, you got to really experience it. It's just healthier, I think. I mean, maybe that's because we're early and it's small and doesn't have a very large user base, but right now it's just a breath of fresh air compared to what else is offered out there.
Yeah, I did see Eric Kaysen, posted. He said, I'm on Noster now, and I got to say, the best part is I'm not addicted to it. I just
Yeah.
get away and like, oh, don't have a need to go back to it. And I don't want to brag, but I recently, I think like a week or two ago, my Sunday Apple, speaking of iPhone, user report came up and said that I had only averaged an hour and 45 minutes on my screen a
Oh wow,
day.
that's
And I was like, whoa, like that is real low, because I know the
yeah.
average is like 6.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm probably up there at like 4 to 6 hours or something
Yeah.
like that. I don't even
I
know.
usually was always at like 4, and it just would make
Yeah,
me mad because I'd sit there and I'd go, I'm like, okay, let's just say hypothetically you sleep for 8 hours. So that leaves you 16 hours. 1/4 of those I spend staring at my phone. What
yeah.
the hell am I
Well,
doing?
yeah. These apps have gotten really good at stealing our attention. Like they are literally made to bring us back to the application by showing us, one, not only these like dopamine hits, but again, if you show people like controversial content, like we're human. Like we may not say we like controversial content, but man, you want to go back and be like, oh, I got to see what that asshole said about this.
Yep.
Like that's just how we
When
are. It's
something
how we're
happens, you're
wired.
like, I want to see what that
Yeah,
jackass
and we
said about it.
and we shouldn't really be that way, but we are, and these apps take advantage of that. So Noster, like
It's
the
kind of
devs,
undoing that.
the devs realize that that's bad, and it that doesn't mean someday someone's not going to build some app because it's open, right? Somebody could build some like highly addictive app, but because it's open, you don't have to use it. If you don't like that experience, then don't use it. Use
Hmm.
another app.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I feel with Twitter, because I mean, I use it because that's where I get a lot of my sports news
Yeah.
and still get a lot of Bitcoin content. But that's the
Well,
only reason I use it. But then
yeah.
you're like on it too long. You're like, what am I doing? Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
literally don't even want to be on here.
I mean, how many times you like laid there in bed getting ready to fall asleep? You're like, yeah, let me just scroll for a little bit, and then
Yeah,
like a half hour later, you're like, man, what have I been doing?
I know. I just wasted 30 minutes of sleep. What, like, that's what I've been doing lately. I've noticed, like, I'm been going this. I swear this is all Nosta related over the last like 2 weeks. It's like my screen time is down, and I'm going to bed, and I'm like, yeah, I'd just rather roll over and go to sleep. Like, that's what I'd rather do right now.
Yeah, it's good, man.
It's yeah. I think this is the way to go, and I'm really gonna like push this hard, because, and I gotta again. I've been telling everybody we got to be better Bitcoiners, because I say it not frequently, but every once in a while I'm like, some of y'all are here for number go up, and it really shows.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like, and I get it. Like, people that built large followings, you know, it's hard to start over. But at the end of the day, do you care about actually changing the world with these technologies, or are you just here to pump your bags? If
Exactly.
you really care about changing the world, then you should use tools that are aiming to do that, right? Like I just you know you may be in Bitcoin for different reasons if you're not embracing these type of tools.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's a good way to put it. So, everyone, you need to do that. You need to get on Nostr if you aren't already. I'll Nostr shame people.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. And we're early, right? Like some things are going to be clunky. Like I said, it's not Twitter. Twitter's been around for 18 years. It's had 2 decades to get better. Uh, Noster's, I mean, Noster's really the apps. Most apps are less than 2 years old. Like
yeah.
it's pretty impressive how well things are developed for being that young.
Huh. That's wild.
Yeah.
It's still got a long ways to go, but I think it's people like
Potential
when you
though, right?
and when we say that though, people probably think like, oh, it's like Yahoo GeoCities or something like that, and it's like, no, no, no. Like this is it. It feels like Twitter. Like the Damas app feels like Twitter. You know,
Yeah.
it's I
And that's the that's what Will is going for with Damas. He wants it to, you know, Twitter obviously they spent 2 decades knowing what people want, so it's very similar to Twitter. And he wants it to be very smooth and very fast, so people have a good experience. Like Damas is probably the smoothest and fastest Noster experience that's out there. Like I have a I'm an Android user, but I have my niece's old iPhone that I have been playing with the past like 2 months because I wanted to test Damas because it's only available for
for iPhone.
iOS and a couple other iOS apps that are only the Nostr apps that are only available for iOS. So I've been playing with them all, and yeah, Damas is super smooth. It's a lot of potential.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, Derek, I really appreciate this conversation. This was great.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you came on, and we'll have to do this again, you know, check in like in a handful of months or something whenever
Yeah,
as things develop on Noster. And so I appreciate you coming on.
absolutely, sir. I appreciate being here, and thanks for having me. And yeah,
Where can people
let's
follow
do
you?
follow me? Well, you know what? I'm Nostr only now. A couple months ago, I deleted all my socials everywhere. Like I had them all. They're all gone. So you can only follow me on Nostr. Uh, Nostr gives you various ways to search for people. I'm going to give you my Nostr address. It's like an email address, but it's for Nostr. Derek Ross, DEREKROSS at nosterplebs.com.
Awesome. Well, Derek, thank you so much. And thank you guys for listening. And thanks to the Bitbox O2 hardware wallet. Go to bitbox.swiss/Bitcoin made simple. Use the promo code Bitcoin made simple to get 5% off. And I will talk to you guys later.